Hi guys, it's Roxy Whitney here, your favorite Rocket City realtor, and today I have a very special guest that's going to tell us everything we need to know about the closing process. So,
my name is Alyssa Pickett. I'm with North Alabama Title and Escrow, and we are a title company that works with real estate agents to get all the closing process going through. We actually maintain an escrow account. These accounts contain funds needed for closing. We carry out the closing, and at closing we ensure all necessary documentation is signed and explained to all parties. Then we collect any money due and distribute all of that money laid out specifically in the closing disclosure. We also make sure that all documents that require recording, like a deed and a mortgage, get recorded to the proper entities. We also make sure that the title to the piece of real estate is warrantable, and then we issue title insurance for that property. Title insurance protects the lender and or the owner against any lawsuits or claims against the property that result from disputes over the title.
And we're going to dive into all of that fun stuff and starting now. So thank you so much for the brief overview.
Of course.
Because I know when I was buying and selling houses, it's like, okay, I have financing, it takes 30 days, but you don't really know what's happening and all the fun stuff that goes into it. And then you get the cost at the end and you have no idea what they are.
Exactly.
I'm very excited to learn a little bit more with you. Starting off with just the first thing, what is the first step in the closing process?
So first we receive the contract or title request. Typically the contract comes from our agents, or a title request comes from a lender if the lender is involved in that. And then we start our file process and we do our search on the title. After everything's been searched and everything's been pulled together, we then pull together more information and coordinate with our agents, our lenders, the appraisal, everybody who's involved.
That's awesome, and I can definitely see how that could get a little messy if there's anything fun that pulls up when pulling title. I know that I've run into a few situations where they pulled a title and it's been like she was the head of the family and she had the kids under it, and then we had to go back in as a life estate and fill all that fun stuff in, so it can definitely get messy, and that's why definitely respect the process. So I know once you get under contract, you know, they have that escrow deposit that they put in, which is like their wedding ring on the house and that kind of thing. And I always have them take it over to you guys or send it in on a check or a wire. And where does that money go?
So that escrow deposit goes right into our escrow account. We've named it such so that we keep everything properly organized. These funds get held and then are reflected on that closing disclosure. The closing disclosure gets reviewed and signed. It is actually the first document that we go through in the closing process at the table. So that gets signed by both the buyer and seller. So everyone knows what it is. And typically we also give a copy to the agents. So everyone knows exactly where all the money was.
Yes, exactly. And I know that can be pretty pricey. I have one under contract and it's $10,000 in escrow. So it's nice to know where that money's going, and why they hold it here at a nice closing place is so if either side gets a little angry about it, then they're the safety box that keeps it all locked up. And then another thing going into some cost is, how do you guys always figure out the closing costs that they get at the end?
As well as most title companies have our base list of fees. So we kind of try to keep everything at that number, but we typically will have to build onto that because, you know, things pop up.
Yeah.
So we also calculate the title insurance based on the loan amount and the purchase price amount of the property. So there are different insurances that go to different people, and it's a fun little calculation.
Fun time. Yes, of course. And then pulling in from the loan amount and your purchase price, keep in mind your purchase price is what you're buying the house for, but your loan amount is how much the lender is giving you. So they are two different numbers, so just keep that in your mind as well. So it's not all going off of the purchase price or anything like that. And then, so going on to the whole 30 days to close. So it's typically 30 days, and that's normally what the contracts come out to be, but could it potentially be sooner, or how would it go over and that kind of thing?
Of course. I mean, it always depends on what needs to be done on the file and everything that we need to do and all those little oopsies we find in coordinating. But the 30 days to close rule is just an industry standard. Like, it's standard verbiage on most of the contracts that we see. But the 30 days just kind of allows everyone, including the lender and any appraisals, to just kind of get everything together, and it gives us more of wiggle room to get all of that together.
Yeah.
But it gives everyone time, basically.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I always recommend everybody get their inspections done ASAP, so that way if that is a potential that your lender could close sooner, you have that. But sometimes you find stuff in inspections that could take 2 weeks to fix, and then you may need a reappraisal and different things that can push it out that way. So always get all that fun appraisal and inspection stuff done first, so we don't make these people all stressed and worried that we're not going to actually close in 30 days. Because they are coordinating above everybody, making sure both sides are all good and it all works out.
It feels like we're like a tree.
Yeah.
Just kind of branching out to everyone all the time.
Yes, got to make sure the garden looks good and we're not falling over or get struck by lightning in the middle of a transaction.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know sometimes people will see on there, on especially some of the contracts, even down in Florida, it's on the contract specifically, on if a survey is needed or if a survey is not needed. So what do you guys always say as for surveys and that kind of information?
So surveys can be state specific. Alabama does not require, we are North Alabama title and escrow, but we also do Tennessee.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on Tennessee, but for sure Alabama doesn't require it.
Yeah.
Typically, we have certain cases that we will require them for, like if the property lines aren't definitive, which we're running into issues with that with houses or properties from a long time ago. Somebody's owned it for 70 years, so we're having to
not fenced there for 8 years,
but you're 3 feet over that property line.
Exactly.
So that, and then sometimes we have cases where people, we actually just had a case like this. It's a great example. It was a father and a son, and they had 2 spots of land side by side.
Yeah.
They wanted to combine that land and then section out part of it.
Okay.
So we needed to do a survey for that because it was a whole little puzzle of figuring that out. So we definitely need that defined, especially for the deed.
But as for recommending surveys on your normal residential lot and that kind of thing, especially in Alabama, since they're not needed, it's kind of just like, you should be pretty safe. Now, if you get out there in the country and you're a little concerned about if that flag is in the right spot, then you might want to get a survey to make sure that that lot size is correct. So, do you have to deal with the lender and appraiser, and is there any more parties involved in the process? Because like I said, you're like the overseers of everything. Yep. So like, how do you guys, who all do you work with? How do you coordinate all that?
So typically, the lender deals with the appraisal more directly.
Yeah.
They've got their companies, but we deal with just about everything else.
Yeah.
So we deal with both parties, their agents. Typically, we call the parties just for their personal information, and then we coordinate everything else with the agents. We deal with the lender, any payoffs, homeowners associations, termite companies, just about anybody involved. We deal with them.
Yes, that's a lot of information, and I know you guys have all the best systems in place to keep control, because I've closed many of things and it has all went well. So that is very good.
For now.
Yes, exactly.
Hopefully it continues that way. We do have our systems in place and everything that has to be filled out, and we have to call everybody and verify at least through 2 people that that's what's supposed to be done for the property.
Yeah, and that's awesome, because then you don't have any sideline things that you get to closing and then, we can't close because we have to push it back because that termite litter didn't come in and no one knew, and so it's really great to have those systems in place so it doesn't end up pushing it out past the 30 days and possibly close before the 30 days. So speaking of closing quicker, so how fast can a cash close?
So if the property in the file doesn't need anything ordered, like payoffs or HOAs or anything like that, where it's just that's it, we just need to do the paperwork essentially. We can typically close that in 3 to 5 business days. If it does need things ordered, like a payoff for a previous mortgage or HOA dues, that varies based on timelines given from the people we're ordering that stuff from. So typically I typically say 3 to 5 business days, because that's just where we stand usually with that.
And that is awesome. So if you are a cash deal, just know that it is wonderful. And also to keep in mind, if it is an HOA or if it is like a bazillion-dollar property, there's probably a previous mortgage that is going to have to be handled. So the 3 to 5 days probably is going to look more like 7 to 14. So it's nice to keep all of that in mind. But still, that's like half of the 30 days.
Oh,
so
yeah. We try to keep it within whatever day that we're given on the contract.
Yes. And sidebarring here off of the cash closing. So normally on a cash closing, the costs to close are a lot cheaper. So if you would want to explain any bits about that at all?
So we have a lot less work to do usually with cash contracts, and there's significantly less paperwork to deal with for cash. With lenders, the packet is usually about 150 pages. With cash, it's about 20.
Yeah.
So there's a lot less work being put into it, and we can get it done a lot quicker. So we try to, if we're not putting as much time and effort into it, we try to keep those fees lower because there's no reason.
Yeah, exactly. And also you're not having those other fees that come specifically from a lender since you are paying cash. So that's why your cash closing costs are normally a lot lower. Yes. Which is great. And how does probate affect a closing? Because I know this one is kind of an interesting topic. So.
It is. So we actually had like a whole office discussion about this, trying to like figure out the best way to answer it. So probate is when someone passes and their real property goes to their heirs.
Yes.
It's the formal legal process of distributing real property after someone passes. So there can be additional steps with that for closing, but that depends on the complexity of the estate.
Yeah, exactly. And how willing the family is cooperating and selling and that kind of thing. So you definitely want to make sure you have a great closing company when dealing with a probate property, because it can get a little confusing. But that is a little more information on what it is and a little more on that. And then also, if the property is a life estate, does anyone else need to sign it or anything like that? I know we kind of talked about it a little earlier, but...
So a life estate is when someone has interest in a real property while they are still living. So that's the difference between just a regular estate and a living estate. But if all parties are listed on the estate are living, then we typically do need them to sign just a deed.
Yes.
So it makes it a little bit easier in the process, and we can mail it away and have someone in Hawaii notarize it, or we can have it done here, or we can drive a couple hours down the road and go deal with it there.
Yeah, because I know I just recently had a property that was in a life estate, and she had just moved it over to include her kids because she was worried if anything happened to her, if anything like that would need to be done. And there was a little bit of like, well, do the kids need to sign everything or blah, blah, blah. So that is really important to know, that if you do plan on moving your property into a life estate, or if you already have, what would need to be done as for closing and that kind of thing. And yeah, there's remote closing. So you can be vacationing in Hawaii and your kid could be up in Alaska, and we're still good.
Yep.
We're getting that 30 days, whether you like it or not.
Definitely.
Exactly. So moving, but kind of into the remote closings, how do those normally work?
So we specifically offer a mobile notary service. We also, myself personally, are a mobile notary service. So we can come to our clients when they can't attend. We can come anywhere to get this process done in those 30 days.
Yes.
So anywhere within 2 hours, someone from our office, like myself, will come specifically to do it. There's Main Street in Huntsville that I go to frequently for closings. It's about an hour drive.
Yeah.
So, just a little road trip for myself to do. But anywhere outside of that 2 hour mark, we will send our mobile notary service and deal with it over there. We had one in Hawaii recently.
That is awesome.
So anywhere. We try to make it work anywhere.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, I hope that gave you a really good overview of what all these lovely people do over here during the closing process, and why it is that 30 days. And if you get any fun emails from them, that they are probably important and you should open them.
If you're concerned about them, give us a call. Absolutely. Just give us a call and double check.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But
thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being on, and I hope it was informative.
I hope so.
Exactly.